For more on this, we turn to Errol Barnett, who's in West Palm Beach, Florida. He's traveling with President Trump, who's spending the weekend, of course, at the Mar-a-Lago club. Okay, Errol, so we just heard from the vice president. We're just days away from a vote. Does the president feel like this health care bill has everything that he promised on the campaign trail?
Well, the president himself, Rena, is bullish and enthusiastic about this legislation. In fact, he said last week that he expects this health care reform bill to pass through the lower chamber of the House on Thursday when they take their vote, and he expects it to happen very quickly. But the reality is Republicans do not appear to have the votes necessary at this stage to get the legislation through and even be looked at by the Senate. And that's why you're seeing President Trump late last week meet with reluctant Republicans at the White House to try and speak with them about their concerns. He was able to negotiate a different method in administering grants for Medicaid. Through this change that he was able to make happen, it will now be done through block grants to states, and states can determine how that money will be sent and who will be eligible, rather than the previous plan. After discussing that with those Republicans, they came around and said that they could certainly vote for this legislation, but that won't be enough to get it through. And that's why you're seeing Vice President Pence hold these events in Florida today, speaking to constituents, Republican Congress people, and a lot of activist groups as well, who'll be addressing one tonight here in West Palm Beach, to try and convince them that this is the best shot they have at any reform of Obamacare. So publicly, the administration is being very bullish on this legislation, but privately they know that it is an uphill battle from today until Thursday, and they will spend that time convincing every last Republican to get behind this bill.
Yeah, they certainly are making that push. We also know, Errol, that FBI Director James Comey will be on Capitol Hill Monday. He's going to be answering questions about President Trump's alleged ties to Russia, and also the claims that former President Obama wiretapped Trump Tower during the election. Is this administration concerned about what might actually come out of these hearings?
Well, if the administration is concerned, they aren't saying so publicly, but because this health care reform legislation is a real first legislative test for the president, they don't want any distractions. And it is clear that on Monday, when the FBI director delivers his testimony to Congress, it will absorb all of the oxygen in Washington. And the challenge for the president is, if you are a reluctant Republican who is on the fence about health care, James Comey's testimony, which we expect to confirm everything else we've heard from officials in Washington, that there is no evidence to support the president's wiretap claim. If that is the case, the president's credibility will be damaged. And so Republicans who are really on the fence about this legislation may be more reluctant to get behind the president if he ends up looking bad on Monday. Because remember, even if James Comey only says the FBI doesn't have more information to confirm what the president claimed, Democrats will use that platform to put attention on the administration's links, or I should say Trump associates' links to Russia, which was the narrative before he sent that tweet to change the kind of media cycle. So the administration doesn't want to give much attention or focus to what happens on Monday, but all of Washington will.
Speaking of attention and focus, it's rare that I talk to you without talking about the president's tweets. And today he tweeted again this morning about his meeting on Friday with German Chancellor Angela Merkel. How was that meeting received, Errol?
Well, Rena, I can tell you now that I'm coming down to Florida when the president is here, it's becoming a bit of a regular thing. I get used to these Saturday morning tweets in between 6 and 10 a.m. when the president typically wakes up at Mar-a-Lago and voices his personal opinion. He usually is responding to whatever is the main news item of the day. And when he sent those tweets about the wiretap claim, as I mentioned, it was after there was a lot of discussion in the news about his associates' links to Russia. So the tweets today about his meeting with Angela Merkel, saying it went very well, don't believe what you hear in the fake news, is likely a response to the coverage of that meeting, which was widely characterized as awkward and uncomfortable. The president did not shake Chancellor Angela Merkel's hand in the White House, as he did with the Canadian, Japanese, and Irish heads of state. During the press conference, he raised a sore spot in referencing when the NSA had listened in on the Chancellor's phone calls during the Obama administration. Angela Merkel did not appear pleased by that, and the president has said he uses his Twitter account to get around what he calls the fake news and to share his opinions. So he simply wants to set the narrative straight and that the meeting went well with the German Chancellor, while then saying Germany needs to pay more to the US and to NATO for the defense that it provides. So not necessarily diplomatically sensitive, but the president uses Twitter to voice his opinion.
Yeah, rarely are his tweets diplomatically sensitive, I'll have to say. We know this is the president's 5th weekend at Mar-a-Lago since he took office. He said that he was going there for what he called a major meeting about the VA. Do we have any news on that front?
Well, it's actually unclear at this point. Late on Friday, he held a meeting at the White House and said there was going to be a large meeting later that evening to talk about Veterans Affairs issues. And in fact, he was sitting next to the VA Secretary, David Shulkin, when he said as much and then turned to him to say, are you going to come down to Mar-a-Lago and be there for this? And the Secretary nodded no. So that meeting did not take place last night, but we do know that one of the attendees, the CEO of Marvel Comics, will be at Mar-a-Lago tonight and will dine with the president. We do know that Veterans Affairs issues and things to improve their quality of life is something that the president prioritizes and sees as very important. It's unclear exactly how the meetings to address those concerns, when they will exactly take place.
And I should note, Errol, the loud noise that we heard behind you was actually, we saw the vice president's motorcade. He's got a lot of events in Florida this weekend, so I want to thank you very much, Errol, for your time.
It's a busy place.
It is, it certainly is.
Sure.
Enjoy the weather out there, Errol.
You got it.